When my son told me he was taking me to court over his father's inheritance, I laughed in disbelief. Days later, I was watching my family attorney suggest I settle and give him half my estate. That's when I realized family loyalty is like expensive crystal, beautiful to display, but shatters at the first real test. If you're watching this, go ahead and subscribe right now. Drop a comment telling me what you would do if your own child betrayed you like mine did. Because believe me, what I'm about to share is going to make your blood boil and your heart break all at once. My name is Eleanor Whitmore, and 3 months ago, I thought I had the perfect life. My husband Richard had passed away 2 years earlier, leaving me comfortable in our sprawling Victorian home with more than enough money to live out my days in peace. Our son James, my only child, visited every Sunday without fail. He'd bring flowers, ask about my week, and tell me about his work at the investment firm. I cherished those visits. They were my anchor in a world that felt empty without Richard. That particular morning started like any other. The autumn leaves were dancing across our long driveway when my phone rang. It was Walter Fitzgerald, our family attorney for over 20 years. "Eleanor," he said, his voice oddly formal. "We need to meet. Today, if possible." Something in his tone made my stomach drop. "What's this about, Walter?" "I'd rather discuss it in person." "It's about Richard's will." 2 hours later, I sat in Walter's wood-paneled office, the same one where Richard and I had signed our wills years ago. Walter couldn't look me in the eye as he slid a document across his mahogany desk. "James has filed a petition contesting Richard's will," he said. "He claims you manipulated Richard into changing it during his final illness, cutting James out of his rightful share. Script part separator ====." My hands trembled as I picked up the document. "This is ridiculous," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Richard was of sound mind when he updated his will. James knows that." Walter adjusted his glasses. "He's claiming otherwise. He's hired Thornton Black, the celebrity lawyer?" My heart sank. Thornton Black only took cases he knew he could win, and win spectacularly. "James is seeking half of everything, Eleanor. The house, the investments, even Richard's art collection." I couldn't breathe. "But why now?" "It's been 2 years since Richard passed. According to his filing, James recently found old emails suggesting you pressured Richard during his chemotherapy treatments." Walter wouldn't meet my eyes. "There's more. He's requested temporary management of the estate assets while the case proceeds. He wants to freeze my accounts?" The room started spinning. How am I supposed to live? "I've scheduled an emergency hearing for Friday. 3 days from now." I drove home in a daze, my mind racing. Why would James do this? The will wasn't even unfair. Richard had left him the vacation house in Maine, a substantial trust fund, and his grandfather's watch collection. I got the main house and the bulk of our savings, money that Richard and I had built together over 40 years of marriage. When I pulled into my driveway, I nearly crashed into another car, James's sleek black BMW. He was sitting on my front steps. "Mom," he said, standing up. He looked different somehow. Colder. "I was hoping we could talk." "Talk?" I clutched my purse like a shield. "You're suing me, James. You've hired Thornton Black to paint me as some kind of manipulative monster, and now you want to talk? It doesn't have to be this way." His voice was so calm, so reasonable. "Just sign the agreement. Split everything 50-50, and we can avoid a messy court battle." "Split everything?" "James, this is my home. Your father and I built this life together. And I'm his son." His eyes hardened. "I deserve my share." "He gave you your share. The trust fund alone is worth crumbs." The word exploded from him. Dad built an empire worth millions, and he left me crumbs. In that moment, I didn't recognize my own child. This wasn't the boy I'd raised. This was a stranger, wearing his face. "Get off my property," I whispered. "Unless you're here with flowers next Sunday, don't come back." Script part separator ===. As I watched James drive away, I collapsed onto the porch steps, my legs too weak to carry me inside. How had it come to this? What had I missed? The next morning, I called my closest friend, Diane. "Eleanor, oh my God," she gasped when I told her. James? Our James? The same boy who made you those Mother's Day cards with the macaroni? Apparently macaroni art doesn't guarantee loyalty, I said, trying to laugh through my tears. You need a lawyer. Not just Walter, someone who specializes in contested wills. Walter's been our attorney for 20 years, I protested. And he's also played golf with James every month since he graduated college, Diane said pointedly. That stopped me cold. How do you know that? Facebook. They check in at the country club. Eleanor, you need to protect yourself. By that afternoon, I had an appointment with Patricia Reeves, a no-nonsense attorney who specialized in estate litigation. Her office was smaller than Walter's, without the pretentious oak paneling and leather chairs, but her wall of credentials told me everything I needed to know. Mrs. Whitmore, I'll be blunt, she said after reviewing my documents. This case stinks. Your husband's will was properly executed. You have medical records showing he was mentally competent, and there were witnesses present who weren't beneficiaries. So, why is your son doing this now? I don't know, I admitted. Follow the money, she said, leaning forward. People don't suddenly decide to sue their mothers without a reason. Does James have financial problems? Not that I know of. He makes good money at his investment firm. Patricia made a note. We need to investigate that. What about your family attorney? Walter Fitzgerald. You said he seemed eager for you to settle? He said it would be less painful. For whom? Patricia asked, raising an eyebrow. I want you to go home and gather everything related to your husband's estate. Bank statements, property deeds, investment portfolios, everything. And I want you to make copies of all correspondence with your son over the past 2 years. Text messages, emails, birthday cards, anything that shows your relationship. That night, I sat at Richard's desk in our home office, surrounded by financial records. The familiar scent of his sandalwood cologne still clung to the leather chair. What am I missing, Richard? I whispered to the empty room. What would you do? Script part separator equals. As I sorted through Richard's papers, a chill ran down my spine. In the back of his desk drawer, I found a file labeled J Concerns. Inside were bank statements from James's accounts I didn't know existed. They showed massive withdrawals, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and transfers to offshore accounts. Why would Richard keep this from me? And what was James doing with all that money? My phone rang, startling me. Private number. Mrs. Whitmore? A woman's voice. Unfamiliar. We haven't met, but I need to talk to you about James. Who is this? I demanded.
Victoria Daniels. I
was engaged to your son until last month. My head spun. James was engaged? He never mentioned. He wouldn't have, she cut in. Mrs. Whitmore, there are things you need to know. James is in trouble. Deep trouble.
Can we meet?
The next morning, I sat across from a striking young woman at a coffee shop 20 miles from my home. Victoria was elegant, but visibly nervous, constantly checking the door. James has gambling debts, she said without preamble. Dangerous ones. That's why he's after your money. He owes people you don't want to owe. How much? I whispered. Over $2 million. Maybe more now. She twisted her ringless finger. That's why I left. He started changing, lying, manipulating. When he told me his plan to contest the will, I knew I had to get out. Why are you telling me this? Her eyes met mine. Because what he's doing to you is wrong. And because I'm scared for him. These aren't people who take IOUs. As Victoria left, she pressed a USB drive into my hand. Security footage from the casino where it started. You'll see who he's involved with. That night, I watched my son meeting with men whose faces I recognized from news reports about organized crime. In one video, James was shouting, desperate, as a man gripped his shoulder with menacing familiarity. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Emergency. The hearing's been moved up. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. They're pushing for an immediate asset freeze. Script part separator equals. I barely slept that night. By morning, I was running on nothing but adrenaline and fear. Patricia met me at the courthouse steps, her briefcase bulging with documents. They're rushing this through because they're hoping to catch us unprepared, she whispered as we hurried through security. Walter knew exactly what he was doing when he gave you such short notice. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, intimate almost, which made it all the more shocking when I saw James sitting there with Thornton Black and Walter right beside them. My family attorney, the man who'd guided us through Richard's illness and death, was sitting with my son against me. Mrs. Whitmore, Judge Harriet Collins looked at me over her reading glasses. I understand you've only recently retained new counsel. Would you like a continuance to prepare your case? Before Patricia could answer, Thornton Black stood up. Your Honor, we strongly object. Mrs. Whitmore has had ample time to prepare. This delay tactic only allows her to continue spending down assets that rightfully belong, in part, to my client. Your Honor, Patricia countered, we have evidence that this entire case is being brought under duress and false pretenses. Mr. Whitmore has significant gambling debts. Objection. Black thundered. Counsel is attempting to smear my client's character with unsubstantiated claims. Judge Collins frowned. Ms. Reeves, do you have evidence to support these allegations? Patricia held up the USB drive. We do, Your Honor. Security footage showing Mr. Whitmore meeting with known members of organized crime, discussing his debts and his plan to contest his father's will. The color drained from James's face. He whispered frantically to Black, who looked increasingly concerned. Your Honor, Walter interjected, this is clearly fabricated evidence. Actually, came a voice from the back of the courtroom. I can authenticate that footage. Everyone turned. Victoria stood in the doorway, flanked by two men in dark suits. Your Honor, one of the men said, stepping forward and showing a badge, I'm Special Agent Brooks with the FBI. We've been investigating a money laundering operation at several casinos. Ms. Daniels has been cooperating with our investigation. Script part separator . The courtroom fell into stunned silence. James looked like he'd been hit by a truck, his face ashen as he stared at Victoria. Your Honor, Agent Brooks continued, we have evidence that James Whitmore has been involved with the Rossi crime family for over a year. He's accumulated substantial gambling debts and has been laundering money through his investment firm to pay them down. Judge Collins's expression hardened. Mr. Black, did you have knowledge of these allegations before filing this case? Thornton Black, celebrity lawyer extraordinaire, suddenly looked very uncomfortable. Your Honor, my client assured me this was a straightforward inheritance dispute. It appears to be anything but straightforward, the judge replied coldly. Walter jumped to his feet. Your Honor, these FBI allegations have nothing to do with the validity of Richard Whitmore's will. The petition should still be heard on its merits. Actually, Patricia interjected, they have everything to do with motive, Your Honor. Mr. Fitzgerald, when did you become aware of James Whitmore's gambling debts? Walter's face reddened.
I
don't know what you're implying. Patricia pulled out a document from her briefcase. This is a bank statement showing transfers from an account in your name to an offshore account linked to James Whitmore. 3 transfers, each for $50,000, in the weeks before this petition was filed. The courtroom erupted. I felt dizzy, gripping the table for support. Not only had my son betrayed me, but Walter, our trusted family friend and attorney, had been part of it all along. Order. Judge Collins slammed her gavel. This hearing is suspended pending a full investigation. Mrs. Whitmore's assets will remain unfrozen. Mr. Whitmore, Mr. Fitzgerald, you are both to surrender your passports to this court immediately. As we stood to leave, James finally looked at me. The cockiness was gone, replaced by something I hadn't seen since he was a little boy who'd broken a window with his baseball, raw fear. Mom, he whispered, his voice breaking. I never meant for it to go this far. Script part separator . As people filed out of the courtroom, I could barely move. Patricia gently touched my elbow. Let's go, Eleanor. We need to talk privately. Outside, rain had begun to fall, matching my mood. We huddled under the courthouse portico, while Patricia called her driver. What happens now? I asked, watching James and Walter being questioned by FBI agents across the parking lot. Now we prepare for the real battle, Patricia said grimly. The judge suspended today's hearing, but this isn't over. Black will regroup. But with the FBI involved, That complicates things, but doesn't end them. The criminal investigation is separate from the civil case about Richard's will. My phone buzzed with a text from Diane. Saw the news. Are you okay? Coming over tonight with wine. News? Already? I looked up to see a local reporter approaching with a microphone. Mrs. Whitmore. Can you comment on the allegations that your son was gambling with family money? Were you aware of his connections to organized crime? Patricia stepped between us. My client has no comment. Please respect her privacy during this difficult time. The black town car arrived, and Patricia hustled me inside. As we pulled away, I saw James watching, his face a mask of desperation. For a moment, our eyes met through the rain-streaked window. I turned away first. He's still my son, I whispered. Patricia's voice softened. Eleanor, I know this is painful, but we need to discuss what was found in Richard's office. The file marked J. Concerns. There might be more your husband knew that could help us.
I nodded numbly.
Richard always protected me. Even from the truth, it seems. We need the complete truth now, Patricia said. Because I guarantee you, we've only seen the tip of the iceberg. Script part separator ===. That night, my house felt cavernous, haunted by memories of happier times. Diane arrived with 2 bottles of wine and a fierce protective energy that I desperately needed. I can't believe Walter was in on this, she fumed, pouring generously. 20 years of friendship, thrown away for what? A cut of your money? I sipped my wine, feeling the warmth spread through my chest. What hurts most is that James was planning this for months. All those Sunday visits, the flowers, asking about my health. Was it all just reconnaissance? Have you watched the rest of that security footage? Diane asked. I shook my head. I couldn't bear to see more. After Diane left, I forced myself to face it. With trembling hands, I inserted the USB drive into my laptop. The footage showed multiple meetings. In one, James sat across from a heavy-set man with silver hair. 2 weeks, the man growled. Then we take collateral. Your mother's house should cover it. I told you, I'm handling it, James replied. The will contest will work. My mother trusts me completely. You better hope so, the man said, sliding a document across the table. Sign this now. James hesitated, then scribbled his signature. The final video made me gasp. It showed Walter Fitzgerald meeting with the same silver-haired man in a restaurant. They were laughing, toasting with expensive whiskey. My phone rang, startling me. Unknown number. Mrs. Whitmore? A gravelly voice I didn't recognize. You should be very careful about what happens next. Some things are better left alone. The line went dead. With shaking fingers, I called Patricia. Someone just threatened me, I said. And I found something worse on the videos. Walter isn't just helping James. He's directly involved with these criminals. Script part separator ===. By morning, FBI agents were at my door with a protective detail. Agent Brooks sat in my kitchen, reviewing the footage I'd found. This is bigger than your son's gambling debts, Mrs. Whitmore, he said, his face grim. We believe Walter Fitzgerald has been laundering money through estates he manages for years. How many families has he stolen from? I asked, horrified. We've identified at least 12 cases where substantial assets disappeared during probate. But you're the first one who fought back. A female agent placed a panic button on my counter. Keep this with you at all times. These people don't like loose ends. After they left, I paced my living room, feeling like a prisoner in my own home. The phone rang again, James. Mom, please, he begged. I need to see you.
There's more you don't understand.
Is this another trap? My voice trembled. Are your friends listening?
No, Ishuea.
Meet me at Dad's office. Please. It's important. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Patricia insisted on coming with me, along with one of her firm's security consultants. Richard's office at Whitmore Investments had been maintained as a memorial since his death. As majority shareholder, I'd kept everything intact, his desk, his awards, even the family photos. James was already there when we arrived, looking like he hadn't slept in days. You have 15 minutes, Patricia said coldly. I found something, James said, ignoring her. He went straight to a painting on the wall, Richard's favorite landscape. Behind it was a safe I never knew existed. How do you know about that? I demanded. Dad showed me, right before he died. James turned to me, his eyes red-rimmed. He told me if anything ever happened, I should look here. He spun the dial, and the safe door swung open. Inside was a single leather portfolio. What is that? I whispered. The real reason Walter wants control of Dad's estate, James said, pulling out documents. Evidence that could send him to prison for the rest of his life. Script part separator . The papers inside the portfolio were meticulous, organized in Richard's precise handwriting. Balance sheets, transaction records, and photographs, all documenting a complex money laundering operation run through our family business. Your father knew? I could barely form the words. Not at first. James's voice cracked. He discovered it about 6 months before his diagnosis. Walter was using Dad's investment firm to clean money for the Rossi family. Patricia leafed through the documents with widening eyes. Your husband was building a case. These are dated entries, showing when he discovered each piece. Dad was going to the FBI, James continued. But then he got sick, and everything changed. If Richard knew all this, Patricia said slowly, why didn't he fire Walter immediately? James looked down. Because Walter threatened us. All of us. My heart pounded. That doesn't explain why you're suing me for his inheritance. I had to. James shouted, desperation breaking through. After Dad died, Walter came to me. Said he knew Dad had evidence hidden somewhere. Said if I didn't help him get control of the estate to find it, they'd come after you. So, you decided to put me through hell? Anger flared hot in my chest. You could have told me. They were watching you. Every call, every visit. They had people following you. His voice dropped. That's why I brought flowers every Sunday, to check for listening devices. Patricia interjected, if what you're saying is true, why contest the will so publicly? Why hire Thornton Black? Walter's idea. Create a spectacle, a family drama for the society pages. No one would look past the surface to see what was really happening. James looked at me, eyes pleading. I was trying to protect you, Mom.
I swear.
Script part separator . I didn't know whether to slap him or hug him. After everything, the accusations, the court hearing, the public humiliation, James expected me to believe this was all to protect me? You took secret videos, Patricia pointed out. You were working with Victoria to gather evidence. James nodded. After Walter forced me into this, I knew I needed leverage. Victoria worked at the casino where it all started. She helped me gather proof. So the gambling debts? I asked. Real, he admitted, not meeting my eyes. That's how they got their hooks into me in the first place. But not 2 million. More like 200,000. They inflated it to pressure me. The security consultant, who had been silently watching the door, interrupted. We need to move.
Now.
A black SUV just pulled up outside. Through the window, I saw Walter stepping out of the vehicle, accompanied by 2 men who didn't look like lawyers. Is there another way out? Patricia asked urgently. Dad's private elevator, James said, moving to a panel in the wall. It goes straight to the parking garage. Take these, I said, grabbing the documents from Richard's safe. We need to get them to the FBI. As the elevator doors closed, I watched Walter and his thugs entering the building through the lobby security cameras. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. He must have had this place watched, James said, confirming my thoughts. When the elevator reached the garage, we rushed to Patricia's car, hearts pounding. As we pulled onto the street, I saw Walter's men running out of the building, scanning frantically for us. Script part separator . We drove straight to the FBI field office, where Agent Brooks met us in the lobby. As we handed over Richard's evidence, I felt a strange mixture of vindication and grief. My husband had been fighting this battle alone, carrying this burden through his final days. They're going to try to run, Agent Brooks said, flipping through the documents. We need to move quickly. Within an hour, a task force was assembled. Arrest warrants were being prepared for Walter, the Rossi family members, and several others implicated in Richard's files. Mrs. Whitmore, you and your son need protection until we have everyone in custody, Agent Brooks insisted. We're setting up a safe house. For 3 days, James and I lived in a nondescript suburban house under FBI watch. After years of distance and months of conflict, we were finally talking, really talking. I should have trusted you, James said one night as we sat in the bland kitchen. Dad always said you were stronger than anyone knew. I didn't believe him. Why did you start gambling? I asked the question that had been haunting me. James stared into his coffee. After Dad got sick, I couldn't handle it. The casino made everything disappear for a while. Then it became the problem instead of the escape. On the 4th day, Agent Brooks arrived with news. Walter Fitzgerald had been arrested trying to board a private plane to the Cayman Islands. We got him, and we got the evidence we need to bring down the entire operation, he said.
You can go home now.
Both of you. That evening, I stood in my living room, looking at the family photos I'd almost lost. James hovered awkwardly in the doorway. I should go, he said quietly. No, I replied. We still have a lot to work through, but not tonight. Tonight, I just want my son to stay for dinner. Script part separator . As the weeks passed, the story of Walter Fitzgerald's crime ring dominated local news. His arrest had triggered a cascade of indictments throughout the financial community. Every day seemed to bring new revelations about how deep the corruption went. You're the talk of the country club, Diane told me over lunch. Half the members are terrified their own financial advisors might be next. I smiled thinly. Let them worry. The legal aftermath was messy, but decisive. With the FBI evidence, James officially withdrew his petition contesting Richard's will. Thornton Black issued a public apology, claiming he'd been misled about the case. I didn't believe him for a second. Victoria came to see me one afternoon, bringing a potted orchid instead of cut flowers. These last longer, she explained, like the truth. We sat in the garden, an awkward silence between us. Thank you, I finally said, for helping James gather evidence. For coming forward. She twisted her hands in her lap. I loved your son, Mrs. Whitmore. The real James, not the desperate man he became.
Call me Eleanor, I said softly.
And I think the real James is finding his way back. It was true. James had entered a gambling addiction program. He'd sold his flashy BMW and moved into a modest apartment. Every Sunday, he still came for dinner, but now with humility instead of hidden agendas. The night before Walter's sentencing hearing, I couldn't sleep. I wandered into Richard's office, running my fingers over his desk. You knew, didn't you? I whispered to his photograph. You knew it would all come crashing down eventually. I found myself opening his desk drawer, where I discovered one last surprise, a sealed envelope with my name in Richard's handwriting. Inside was a letter dated just days before he died. My dearest Eleanor, it began. If you're reading this, then the storm I feared has finally broken.
Trust your instincts. They've always been sharper than mine.
And remember that family, true family, weathers any storm together. Tears blurred my vision as I clutched the paper to my chest. Even now, Richard was still guiding me home. The next morning, I walked into the courthouse with my head held high. The sentencing hearing was packed. Journalists, victims of Walter's schemes, and curious onlookers filled every seat. James sat beside me, our shoulders touching in silent solidarity. When Walter was brought in, handcuffed, and wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of his custom suits, our eyes met. The arrogant, confident lawyer was gone, replaced by a hollow-eyed old man facing the ruins of his life. The judge's sentence was harsh, 25 years without possibility of parole. As Walter was led away, he stopped and turned toward me. Eleanor, he called out, his voice echoing in the suddenly silent courtroom. I never meant for it to go this far.
The same words James had spoken to me.
But this time, I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Save it for your cellmate, Walter, I replied, loud enough for everyone to hear. Outside, surrounded by reporters shouting questions, I took James's hand and faced the cameras. Today, justice was served, I said firmly. My late husband Richard spent his final days gathering evidence against a man he once trusted. That trust was betrayed, but the truth prevailed. One reporter pushed forward. "Mrs. Whitmore, how does it feel to know your son was part of the scheme against you?" Before I could respond, James stepped up to the microphone. "I made terrible mistakes," he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "I'm working every day to earn back my mother's trust and to make amends." Later that evening, as we shared a quiet dinner at home, James raised his water glass.
"To Dad," he said softly.
"He saved us all in the end." I raised my own glass, feeling Richard's presence around us.
"To family," I replied. "The real kind."
In the months that followed, life settled into a new normal. I established a foundation in Richard's name to help families affected by financial fraud. James worked there part-time while rebuilding his life. Some nights, I still wake up wondering how I missed the signs, how I could have been so blind to the deception surrounding me. But then I remember what truly matters, not the money or the house or even Richard's carefully gathered evidence, but the truth that set us all free.